Hi, everybody. I'm Kurt Greenbaum. I'm often posting here about grammar. Sometimes you will see me posting something that I call the grammar rant, and I thought I'd share something about writing here. I don't play the guitar. I'm not a pianist. I'm not about to sing a cappella video for you. There's a lot of better cooks out there, so I'm not going to do any cooking, but I do like to write. And I thought maybe this could be a little bit of a counterpoint to the grammar rant. I'm calling this little segment 1,000 words, which is keyed off the idea of a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I think good writing, of course, can paint a picture. And I just would like to share an example here today, and maybe we'll do this again sometime, an example of some good writing and why I think it's good writing. And I thought what we'd start with today is one of my favorite books, Charlotte's Web. I think probably many of you have read this book. And the idea here is that I'm going to pick a passage, we're going to talk about it, and hopefully you're going to have some ideas about some things that you think are good writing and maybe reasons why you think the writing in this book is particularly good. So we'll start with this. Charlotte's Web was first published in October of 1952. And I'm going to riff about it for a few minutes. If you want to go get your copy, we can follow along with the passage that I'm going to read. Charlotte's Web is one of my favorites, as I said. It's not the first children's book written by E.B. White. That one, you may recall, is Stuart Little, which was published in 1945. He also wrote a book called The Trumpet of the Swan later, which I had both of them. I cannot find my copy of Trumpet of the Swan. That was published in 1970. And you also may know that E.B. White was one of the co-authors of something of the Writer's Bible, The Elements of Style, which was originally published by William Strunk in 1920, and then released again with an update by E.B. White in 1959, and there's been several editions of it since then. Back to Charlotte's Web. This book is particularly important to me. I got this copy of it when I was in fourth grade. It was given to me by friends of our family on my 9th birthday, and I've had it ever since. I've read this book to my children, both of them. I think we read this one to my daughter when she was still in the womb. The other thing about this is that for a number of years, when I was still living in West County, I was invited to an elementary school teacher's classroom for several years running. It happened to be a fourth grade classroom, and I would bring this book because we were supposed to be talking about writing to the students in her class. And this very passage that we're going to talk about is the passage that I would talk about with them. So if you have your copy, we're going to go to page 68. And it's near the bottom of that page. And let's just read a few sentences from here. Mr. Zuckerman had the best swing in the county. It was a single long piece of heavy rope tied to the beam over the north doorway. At the bottom end of the rope was a fat knot to sit on. It was arranged so that you could swing without being pushed. You climbed a ladder to the hayloft. Then, holding the rope, you stood at the edge and looked down, and were scared and dizzy. Then you straddled the knot so that it acted as a seat. Then you got up all your nerve, took a deep breath, and jumped. For a second, you seemed to be falling to the barn floor below, but then suddenly the rope would begin to catch you, and you would sail through the barn door, going a mile a minute, and the wind whistling in your eyes and ears and hair. Then you would zoom upward into the sky and look up at the clouds, and the rope would twist, and you would twist and turn with the rope. And then you would drop down, down, down out of the sky and come sailing back into the barn, almost into the hayloft, then sail out again, not quite so far this time, then in again, not quite so high, then out again, then in again, then out, then in. And then you jump off and fall down and let somebody else try it. So that's one of the passages. This is a passage in chapter 10 of the book. As you probably know, the chapters are fairly short. Fern has met Wilbur. She's met Charlotte and Templeton on all the other animals on Mr. Zuckerman's farm, and the drama has begun. Wilbur knows at that point that his days are numbered, and Charlotte has resolved by that point that she's going to do something about it. But this is a little diversion in the action, which mostly happens on Mr. Zuckerman's farm. So some of the reasons that I really like this passage are because of the strong descriptive verbs that E.B. White uses in here. You know, it starts very simply with a statement. Mr. Zuckerman's rope swing was the best in the county. And that's usually not something that we talk about in relation to good writing. We usually talk about good writing as something that you're showing instead of telling. And here he's telling them that the rope swing is the best in the county. But then I think he goes on in the rest of that passage to show why it's the best in the county. And he uses strong descriptive verbs like zoom and straddled and sail and whistling when he describes what is going on throughout that passage. There's really clear imagery. You know, he speaks about the fat knot on the end of the rope swing, and he talks about feeling the wind in your ears and eyes and hair, and how you look up at the clouds when you reach the apex of the swing. And I love that imagery that he's painting for us in those few short sentences. Another interesting thing about that passage is that first sentence. Let's read that again. Mr. Zuckerman had the best swing in the county. That's 9 words long, very short. And many of these sentences are very short and declarative. And that, of course, is very good, a very good sign of some strong writing, because you're not trying to do too much with it. You're just trying to be very short and sweet and to the point. And I really like that. But the interesting thing about this particular passage is that first line of that passage is 9 words long, but the last line that I read to you is 63 words long. And it's really interesting to see in a children's book that he's written a fairly complex sentence here, but it's easily read and easily understood. He's punctuated it with parenthetical comments. You come sailing back into the barn, almost into the hayloft, then sail out again, not quite so far this time, then in again, not quite so high, then out again, then in again, then out, then in. Each of his clauses is getting a little bit shorter as he goes through this 68 or 63 word sentence. And I doubt if it's intentional. Maybe it was, but I love the fact that as this long sentence is happening and we're swinging back and forth, and each arc of the swing is getting shorter and shorter, so are the clauses in the sentence that he's writing here. In a sense, though, you could also look at this and read it and think that the language is very simple. The words are very simple. There's nothing very complex about it. And so why is it great? And that too is a reason why it's great. It's great writing in part because E.B. White knows his audience. He's writing for children. He's writing simple, short sentences with easy to understand words, but he's not treating them like they're unable to understand. He's treating them with descriptive words and terrific imagery. So those are just a couple of the thoughts that I had. I thought I'd share this with you, in part because, I thought it was something that I could contribute. I would love to do more of these. If you have ideas for any others that you might like to talk about, I think we could talk about journalism. I think we could talk about nonfiction or fiction writing. I think we could talk about sacred text. But if you enjoyed this, I hope you'll let me know. And thanks again.